fresh meat.
What's going on, Scare fans and DBD fans, and welcome back to the channel. We're gonna be doing some fun gameplay today with the Deathslinger himself. Just to let you guys know, the Deathslinger is actually one of my main killers. I do enjoy playing him quite a bit. He's very fun, very precise, has a very high skill ceiling, but that's kind of why I like him. Plus he's got a gun. He's got a gun in DBD. How can you not like that? It's awesome. I do enjoy it, and I do use it to some great effect, as you will be seeing in this interesting gameplay, shall we say. Something you'll be seeing me do quite a bit throughout this video is when the survivors are going to be dodging left and right to try and predict when I'm going to be shooting out my spear to actually hook them and then down them. I will essentially be gaining distance on them and then getting this juicy M1 down that you see right here. Not even wasting my time too much, just gonna down them, move on. Hopefully, in the ideal situation, I will have my shot to then have another survivor close by and go and pursue them, and then get a down quite fast after the first down, and then stack the pressure and apply it multiplicatively instead of wasting all of my power and all my resources on getting the one survivor down and then having to look for another one and trying to move on that way. So I'm trying to be more efficient and path accordingly in the gameplays. Basically, no matter what map I'm playing on, no matter what kind of survivors I'm playing on, that's always going to be my goal in mind, is to try and use my shots as sparingly as possible. Not only because I tend to play without, the fancy add-ons, but also because I do like to be precise as possible. So going for a lot of shots that I might miss, or going for shots that are unnecessary, isn't exactly one of my priorities in the actual games that I play as the Deathslinger. Now, if you put a gun to my head and you told me, man, you gotta tell me some good add-ons that if I want to play the Deathslinger, these are the ones that I absolutely have to consider using every single game if possible. What I will tell you is that my favorite ones are definitely the reload speed. The faster you can reload, the more shots you can pull off, the more risks you can take. Essentially, the faster you'll end out the games. But if you want a good mix, then I would recommend using the reload add-ons in combination with recovering faster from when you have to break off the chains, because as you can see, sometimes if survivors are trying to go for a cheeky bit of gameplay where they try and vault windows or drop a pallet, pre-drop the pallet before I get to the pallet so that they can essentially create a bit of a barrier and have a safe zone in between me and them. What I will do is I'll pre-fire my spear as they're dropping the pallet, or just after they drop the pallet, essentially when they're still stuck in the animation, they're locked into the animation, and then I essentially break off the chain. They have to mend, and then they have to essentially find a teammate to heal, or they have to heal themselves, in which case if they have to self-care, it's going to take quite a bit of time. They're going to waste a lot of time. They're also going to be scared because they're injured. I'm close by, I can reload, and I can continue the chase. So it gives me quite a bit of pressure on them, but it also gives me options onto what I want to do after that point, which, it is nice to have options as a killer in any match that you play, no matter the skill of the survivor, but that's just my thoughts on the matter. Now, allow me to take a second and comment on what's kind of going on in the video, because I am talking about in general terms of gameplay on the Deathslinger, but specifically on this map, specifically this situation. There was a survivor up there working on that generator. I could hear it being repaired, and essentially I couldn't see shit. Now, behavior. This is me talking to you guys, talking to developers. Hopefully you can kind of look at similar situations in the game like this, where you want to use your power. You have line of sight with the survivor, well, you want to have line of sight with the survivor, but because of all that grass on that ledge, it is really difficult to see where the hell that survivor is or what they're doing. I could have gotten an easy spear and then reeled them off of the ledge, hit them, put them on the hook, because there's several hooks around this corner, but I was denied all that pressure, all that playmaking potential, simply because I couldn't see anything up on top. Now you'll see this moment right here where I know that she's going for the window vault, and like I was saying before, I fire my spear, I hit her, she has to mend now, she's going to have to heal, and it wastes a lot of her time, gives me a lot of pressure in the situation, and allows me to go and do some other objective, or look for other survivors, because she is essentially now busy, and she will not really risk doing anything else, especially once, you know, as she's still in the deep wound state. Once she heals that, she may decide that it's more beneficial to actually stay wounded and continue walking, especially if she has a perk like resilience. But as you saw just a second ago when I was still talking, she finished mending. But that was a lot of time that she had to waste to do that, that she definitely wasn't doing anything else. And in the best case scenario, if somebody else was actually helping her mend, which I think you can do. I'm not entirely sure. It's been quite a while since I've been playing Survivor, but I think they can actually help you mend. But if that was the case, then that's two people busy instead of just the one, and it's a great tool. Now you'll see me apply the same pressure again. I hit the one survivor, now they're injured, they're running away. I spear the second one, apply deep wounds, I kick the generator, I get the pallet. This area is essentially completely under my control, and I control the flow of the engagement perfectly fine. Now you're seeing Nurse's Calling in action. The one that was scared off and is now injured hid in the locker. I didn't realize that immediately, but I'll get her in a second when I turn around and I'm like, well, she didn't go this way, so she must still be in here. She jumps out the locker and I just smack her, and I'm quite a bit confused when this actually happens in game, but what can you do? Random stuff does happen every now and again. You can't really do too much about it. But that was a pretty good one, and hopefully you guys can understand how I try and play with the Deathslinger in every single game. And I highly recommend that you guys do the same, because it is going to give you amazing results in your gameplay. So now let's switch gears and actually talk about some of the stuff that I believe he's actually quite a bit weaker in than some other killers. Is that what you'll notice me doing throughout this game, and maybe some other gameplay that I'll probably show you guys, maybe not today but some other day. I'll show you guys exactly how I try and keep the survivors as close together as possible. I try and make situations to where there's, you know, hooks next to generators, or there's multiple people hooked in the same area, or I try and make it so that they come to me instead of me having to chase them around. Being a 110 movement speed killer is going to work against you in most cases if you are not smart about the way you choose to engage with the survivors. And obviously that's not something you should ever do, is go at their pace. You want to dictate the pace that they have to follow. Generally, as a killer, that is a strategy that's going to pay dividends quite a bit, but especially if you're playing a killer like Huntress, Deathslinger, people that actually rely heavily on using their power instead of just chasing people down and then wanting them. This is definitely the way that you want to be playing. You want to be smart, you want to be calculated, you want to be ruthless. You do not want to be nice to them. You do not want to give them opportunities to be altruistic, to do objectives. You want to be as annoying as possible, you want to be as disruptive to them as possible, and you want to lock an area down. Especially because on a map like this, as you've noticed, there's the gen up top in the lodge, whatever you want to call it. I don't actually remember the name of the building of the like map tile, but there's a generator up there. There's one right to my right that I've just passed, and there's one back in the corner of the map. So that is essentially a 3-gen that I could defend, and I actually did defend it for most of the game, and it did end up actually winning me the game, because if I was chasing people with my, you know, left and right on the map like a chicken with a Z cut off, I would have lost a lot of pressure, would have lost any momentum that I had in this game, and then that would have spelled the loss for me, which essentially I avoided by being a bit smart, being a bit ruthless, and just focusing down these people, making sure that if they come in this area where I'm patrolling and I'm looking around, they will not have a fun time. Now at this point in time, the game is basically over for them. There isn't absolutely no chance in hell they're going to be winning this. The best case scenario for them is that one of them is going to die and the other one is going to get hatch, but because the amount of generators is not low enough, the hatch hasn't actually spawned yet, so it would basically be a 50-50 if the survivor finds the hatch first, or I end up finding the hatch and then kicking it shut. And at that point it has to be a situation where they have to open the gates and I have to patrol between the two gates and hopefully get them down. Now Certain killers have a better time than other killers are doing this. For example, the trapper can place traps at the exit gates, and in a 1v1 situation, the survivor is going to have a very difficult time in actually opening the gates, because the trapper can sit by one of the gates and then the other one is trapped. If the survivor wants to access it without, essentially without stepping in it, he has to disarm it. The second he disarms it, he gives away his position to the trapper. But because you are the Deathslinger, as long as the gates are not too far apart, you should be able to patrol between them while keeping line of sight. And then the second you see the survivor, or you suspect that he's at one of the gates, walk towards it, aim, fire, and if you don't get them, they have to walk away obviously from the gate, because if they continue to sit in that direction, they will get shot. Now let's pause real quick and actually look at what I did here. I saw the survivor to my left. I continued walking forward as if I didn't see him, which gave him the impression that he could now run off. I immediately spin towards him, take aim, and I fire, which gives me the shot off on him, and I also get him injured. Now, if the survivors were in a bad situation before, this definitely turned the tables into my favor, because I essentially now have this guy injured, I have him on the run, I'm positioning myself, cutting him off, and then I immediately go to the opposite side, and as you can see, he tries to juke back, and he essentially walks into me. I get an easy down, and now the game is essentially over, because there's only one survivor left. They have two options. Option number one, abandon the survivor, wait out the death time, the death timer of the survivor on the hook, and then essentially go and try and find the hatch. If they don't find it, then it's going to have to be a situation where they have to open the gate and escape. But option number two, which does end up happening in this game, is that the survivor, instead of running away, decides to come and save the survivor on the hook, which gives me a lot of options, and it gives them a very few options. Now, in this situation, because the generator, in my opinion, live in the game, was completed rather quick when I knew that it wasn't worked on heavily, it was just barely touched. The fact that it got completed rather quickly gave me the impression that both of them were working on it, which is why I went back to check the locker in case the other survivor shouted me when I went to the hook and jumped in the locker or something like that. Could have been possible, would have been nice if it was the case, but it obviously wasn't. So now I spend a bit of time, looking around, trying to see if I can spot him in the distance or crouch somewhere. He ends up going for the save. In the meantime, I immediately walk back. As I'm walking back, there you go, Nurse is calling procs. So now I kind of do this little dance where I'm like, ooh, which way am I going to go? I immediately double back. He panic jumps the window, which he shouldn't have done. If anything, he should have gone to the opposite side and try and loop the TNL walls. But in any case, I get an easy down on the guy. Because of Infectious Fright, I know where the other one is, and I immediately start giving chase. She's running away, she's trying to put distance between me and the guy on the ground, which is actually smart because it gives him time to heal himself, pick himself back up. As you can see, she decides that this is far enough, turns around, I get the M1. Now she's running back, I know exactly what she's trying to do, she's going for the window. I take aim, I fire, but because she was locked in the animation, she goes through it. I find that to be a bit bullshit in my opinion, but it is what it is. It's a bit unfortunate, and it does actually end up giving them the pickup, because by the time I reload and I continue to chase, I get there, I take the shot off, she's already got the guy up, but it's still a no-win scenario for them, because in this case, either she takes the M1, or the guy that just got picked up takes the M1 and goes right back down on the floor. As Yusuke Urameshi in Yu Yu Hakusho said, man, you can't end a good party with somebody on the ground. And unfortunately for them, if I want to have a good time, they're going to have to be on the ground. And that's just how I like to play my killer gameplay. I like to get the 4Ks. Everybody likes to get the 4Ks. But, it doesn't happen every game. You get unfortunate situations, a really coordinated team. It doesn't happen every time. But the more consistent you play, the more that's going to happen. And in this case, I'm on a really nice spree. I've got, I think, like the past 5 or so games have been 4Ks. Decisive wins, kind of like this one, where they really just fall apart at some point in the match. And it's quite fun. I will say that Deathslinger is in my top 3 killers. I also play the Legion. I know you guys are going to flame me for that one, but I do enjoy the Legion's gameplay. Plus, I enjoy the Legion skins. To me, if I'm comfortable, I feel comfortable on a specific, champion, if we're talking about different games, or specifically with Dead by Daylight, if I feel comfortable on a killer, I will play the shit out of them. The fact that the Legion also looks nice and the Deathslinger looks nice in my opinion really helps me get into them a whole lot more than I get into other killers. And also, while they do have some complicated mechanics, they are not that complicated overall, and you can have a very good time with them if you know what you're doing. Now, as I always want to say, guys, slap the video with some likes, leave comments down in the comment section down below, let me know what kind of stuff you want to see in the future, and also if you do feel like it, subscribe to the channel because it does always help me out and I do always appreciate your guys' feedback. See you in the next one.